So welcome again, everyone. We're going to get started. We're going to talk a little bit about the importance of urban agriculture and why this is definitely the way to go, and especially in urban areas such as Philadelphia, a major populous city. There we go. We're there. Okay. So what urban agriculture is, it's a way to farm and generate agricultural crops that are nutritional and not have a dependence on rural farms. And that's what we're talking about. And I'd like to talk to you a little bit about our panel. I first like to introduce the founder and president and CEO of Think and Grow Farms, Dr. Jamie Green.
Do you want us to comment after you introduce us, or just saying hi? Hi, everyone. Good morning. So excited to.
Good morning.
Yes, if you wouldn't mind, just give us introduce yourself, give us a little background about yourself and why you got into urban agriculture.
Okay, well, good morning, everybody. And, Mark is my life partner, business partner, and the wind beneath my wings. But I want to go back in time about how I got involved. Everybody has an origin story, right? There's something you do over and over and over again. Sometimes you don't know why. So the first time I had a farm, I had a garden when little boys in upstate New York told me the food came out of a can. I was like, what? In the neighborhood. So I planted a whole bunch of things in my backyard to teach these little bad boys where food came from. It didn't come off a truck going to the grocery store. Fast forward, then from there, I became a prepper. I'm confessing right now, I was a prepper very early on when Prince was talking about 1999 and people thought, the computers were all going to fail. I said, we better have some food. So I became a prepper then. But I continued that. When I got to Philly, I met a teacher named Bert Johnson. I don't know if any of you know him, but shout out to him wherever he is. He introduced me to aquaculture over a decade ago. Brother was bad. He was moving around from place to place, teaching kids about, using technology in farming. Then he introduced me to Stephen Hughes out at Cheney, who has a big aquaculture initiative out there. And we all got together and started talking about agriculture technologies because the climate was changing. So things didn't necessarily fall apart in 1999, but we knew that the environment was changing for how people could grow outside. So in 2019, Mark and I inherited and really paid for our first shipping container farm, put it over at One Art Farm in West Philly for about a year, and then moved it. So we've been on the periphery, slowly growing our agriculture technology, our knowledge base, so that we're probably one of the larger Black-owned, BIPOC-owned farms that's using ag technology in Pennsylvania right now. So, but we use it really to teach everybody else how to grow year-round. We're not producing lots of food just to sell to market. Our thing is, our people, whoever wants to understand how to control their own food, this is one of the ways to do it. Grow in the soil, but also use some of this technology to make sure you can, hold on to more of your crop. So that's our origin story. We've now built our facility in partnership with PHA and the Economic Development Administration, a whole bunch of good people. We built a training lab inside of Vaux up in North Philly, and we have another one down in the city of Chester. So I'm looking forward to just getting into the conversation, but we thought it was important to start level set where we came from and how we're moving forward with this. And I see Emily Hickerson. I want to shout out my fabulous mother-in-law for being on here. She was one of the 4 or 5 generations that helped us build, think, and grow. So this is really authentically a family initiative. And this is going to be the first of many that we're going to do. I think a lot of people are asking us, can you come out, like Kendrick said, can we pop up and show folks? So yeah, we're going to pop up and show people that this is something that we can authentically be a part of. So I'll go on mute now and let Mark go back to being the host with the most.
Thank you. Thank you for that. Hopefully that was a way to not just level set, but set the table. Forgive the pun. That's what this intro to this is. We're setting the table. And another valuable member of our team that we go back with for quite some time is our Chief Technology Officer, Mr. E. O'Neill Lattimore. And I'd like to ask Mr. Lattimore the same thing, to introduce himself, tell us how and why he got into urban agriculture. Mr. Lattimore.
Right on. Thank you. I appreciate everybody this morning. I started my mom was a teacher, and I think I fell in love with teaching from then. And so I started. My first love was to be a teacher, and then I was introduced to farming about 24 years ago when I moved to California, and then that became my love. And then I moved back to Philadelphia and met Dr. Green, and beautifully we were able to blend the two loves in my life in that I've been building in my career around into one project. And we're able to put the education and the farming together with my career path, but also then with my passion, which is product development and inventing things and creating products out of nothing, and being able to show how and teach people how to plant something that you can then turn into a product that it's so far removed from a farm that you don't think about it. That fascinates me. And so I was blessed 6 years ago to meet Dr. Green at a conference, and we have just kind of stayed lockstep ever since. And this initiative and this project here is about the 5th iteration that you all are witnessing. And we're only getting better every time. So that's me in a nutshell.
Absolutely. Thank you very much for that. And just for context, we were expecting our lead farmer on the Vaux Sharswood project to be joining us. He's actually a Sharswood native, and he could have provided a little more context. Hopefully, he'll be joining us a little later.
There he is. He's on Amanda's phone. There he is.
All right. Well, that's good. Let's introduce our lead farmer for this project. He's a Sharswood native who has extensive experience in urban agriculture. I'd like to introduce you all to Mr. Levi Joins. Mr. Joins, could you tell us a little about yourself and how and why you got into urban agriculture?
Oh, yes. Good morning or good afternoon. My name is Levi Joins. I am a part of Think and Grow Farms Collective and Hydroponics Labs and Farms and New Mind, New Earth, also Black Farmers Co-op. Why did I get involved with urban agriculture? I've experienced food insecurity as a child. I grew up in the 80s. I remember standing in long lines for cheese. I remember the block cheese. I remember having to store food inside of dressers as a child. I grew up in that food insecure environment. And one of the things I pledged to myself growing up was to create an environment that produces for itself so that no child should ever have to feel, or mother or father, that they don't have in their environment. So that's my mission and goal. That's my drive. So that's why I'm involved in urban agriculture.
Thank you very much for that, Mr. Joins. And just for context, just to give everyone a little context about me, I'm a North Philadelphia native myself. And I want wanted to do a little something to leave this planet a little better than I found it. I didn't know what that it was, but finding out that we could do a little something with soil remediation, getting rid of some of the bad things that were in community gardens, and learning how to do that was something that I was passionate about. I served as a bridge engineer for a public entity for 18 years, and I've also worked for 7 years as a certified project manager for that same public entity. So I knew a lot about environmental engineering and even more about environmental injustice. And I thought that a lot of the processes and some of the plants that were built in the 1940s to help support World War II efforts, they had to get a lot of things together real quick. And a lot of those places are around the rivers, more specifically between the Schuylkill and the Delaware. And they got the stuff done. They supported the troops, but there was a lot of bad things left behind. And those bad things left behind left a lot of children that I grew up with asthma, health problems, health disparities. And I want to do what I can to make it a little bit better. So if I can just move the needle just forward a little bit and just help one person, I'll call it a win. But right now we're going to go big or go home. We're going to try to help as many people as we can. So That's our team right here. So one of the things I like to do right now is show.
It's not really supposed to be a big deal. Really, if I'm just supposed to be able to just show you real quick if you don't understand, because there's different versions of those types of tasks. So if you're like, oh, you want to do this?
Dr. Bay, Dr. Bay.
Oh no, well, let me show you. Go right here.
Yes.
Okay.
Is that you? I think you might have some background noise. Thank you. We're going to share a video with you guys right now. Just to put a little context in it, and you'll see some statistics that talk about some of the changes that we've experienced recently that gave us even more incentive to get involved in this initiative. Bear with me.
Is this a video that O'Neill put together for us?
Yes, yes. O'Neill, do you have it?
Yeah, give me just a second. I'm run down and put it on. Yep.
I think there's a question in the chat. Mark, do you want me to just moderate the chat? Because
Yes,
Tanika
please.
has this beautiful question about who wants to take me under their wing.
Yeah.
We all gonna take you under our wing. Right now, just so that everybody knows, we decided to move to webinars, partly because we just know so many people have asked us for information over the last several years, and we just never had a platform. So we are now becoming content creators. The other part of it is that we were going through the summer with Levi training people on the weekends on how to become farmers. And what happened is they had a major issue with needing to address an asbestos issue inside of the part of the Vox building where everybody is. So they made everyone stop their activities. I think that's the correct thing, right, Mark?
That's correct.
So we said, well, you know what? Now is no time like the present to go virtual, to keep the knowledge sharing and to walk you through. So this is our level set webinar, but what you're going to see as soon as we've finished today, we're going to have a series of webinars, and some of them are going to be live with Levi, with me, with O'Neill, with Mark. Everybody who's been using all the urban ag technologies are going to be sharing with you how to walk you through very simple ways to incorporate this into your daily life. So just wanted to level set everyone and just let you know that we're going to be here and we will take you under our wings.
Thank you very much. So we have our video queued. We're going to show you a brief video, give you a little context of what we're doing and why we're doing it. And if you see some of the statistics of how the climate's been impacted through climate change, it'll give you a better understanding of why we're focused on the nexus of food, energy, and water. So I'm going to go ahead and start that now.
I don't hear any sound. Is that me?
I don't hear sound either, but I think what they're describing just appears to be, the next generation of farmers who are coming up, and that this is not new in Black families in the Black community. The people have been growing for a long time, passing on from generation to generation. I think, and then you see Levi there, you see O'Neill there, you see this nexus coming. So I'm sure when you see this on our YouTube channel, the sound will be there. But look at this. Look at what is happening right now with global warming. And of course, that's disrupting how much we can grow outside. We can extend the season, right? We can extend the season outside, but y'all just saw the heat waves that came through and what that did to farms if you didn't have water right there. And we saw what we call heat stress on the plants. A lot of heat stress for people who have, poultry in their backyards. A lot of people having a rough time. So understanding that we are in no way saying that we don't want to grow in the soil. We want to grow in soil, but we need the soil to be cleaned. But we also need to be able to grow year round. And that's why this collaboration, and just for the record, we're all part of the Black Farmers Co-op, right? We are all Black farmers registered in the Commonwealth of Pennsylvania to grow food. But I think it's also really important to help everyone understand that it's both soil and indoors is what's going to keep us safe. It's going to respond to our food sovereignty issues. So thank you for putting that together, O'Neill. You know, we know it looked good. It looked good, bruh.
I'm not quite sure what happened, but it did address a lot of things that we're definitely looking at doing. You'll have access to our YouTube channel during the course of the series, and we also have social media platforms that are developing. So I'm going to ask our marketer, Mr. John Childers, to put the social media handles or links in the chat so everyone can have access to those while we're going on. So we talked about our relationship with PHA. You know who the panelists are, and how and why they got into urban agriculture. Now I'd like to ask a couple of questions to our panelists. But before that, we want to talk about recent events that impacted us all as a community, as a people, and what we saw that made us even understand the importance of this even in a greater detail. So what I'm going to ask the panelists to do, each one to take a recent event that they can recall that made us show how volatile we are with regard to food sovereignty. So Dr. Green, I would ask you if you can think of any recent events or weather event or anything else that may have made you realize, wow, we are actually really vulnerable to food sovereignty based on climate change.
Well, I think in addition to the projections from the National Administration for Oceanic Studies, they're the ones who are projecting what's going to happen. You're going to see more and more heat come into our region. It's going to be wetter. And while that might sound really good, the kind of rain that we're going to get is like torrential rain, and then it dries out. And so I think the number one thing I'm personally paying attention to is how are we going to collect rainwater? How are we going to make sure that we can water our plants consistently? And I'm really paying attention to the type of seed. Now, people talk about seed genetics. I do not support. Let me just put what I am in support of as a farmer. I like heirloom seeds. Let me just keep it simple. So I think that the weather is something for us to monitor closely. So I'll stick with that as a topic.
Okay, thank you very much for that. Mr. Lattimore, can you think of the same thing, same question to you?
I was thinking weather as well, the tornadoes, the floods in out west. You don't think about them really impacting farmland, you know, as much, but if they flood a food distribution warehouse or something like that, that really starts to hit into the food insecurity. So I say that a lot of the weather and storage and processing facilities for food for long term. Fresh food doesn't last long if you want to keep it, you know. So the problem and the solution that, you know, both sides of the same coin is the preservatives that they put into the food. So if we don't, what's the better solution is a somehow processing it to preserve a lot of those nutrients instead of covering it with a bunch of chemicals in an attempt to try to preserve those nutrients. So I feel like that's part of one of the things that, you know, on a really scary note, over COVID, I think we lost about 25 major food processing plants here in America. That, you know, rarely is talked about, but I think that's something that we should really have in mind.
Thank you for that response. And Mr. Joynes, same question.
Oh, well, there's two events, and I want us to contrast food and water. because there's no agriculture without water, and there's no water without agriculture and water go hand in hand. There's two events. One was the water scare, when during the time of our former mayor, his name come back to me in a minute, but with the former mayor, there was a latex crisis. Latex paint got into the water, and an emergency alarm went off across the whole city. And there was a advisory not to drink the water, and they actually told residents not to drink the water for a certain amount of hours to days. That was one right there. And then the other crisis went on during COVID, when the pantries started to go dry, when the pantries started to drop. So there you have food crisis, and you have water crisis in about a year's time, or about a year and a half time away from each other. That's all during COVID and right after COVID at the same time. So it happened in the same amount of stretch. Right there, right over top of each other, right on that. So that was it. That's the two that I noticed.
Okay, thank you for that. That definitely shows that we're a lot more volatile. I see Dr. Bay. I really appreciate the standing invitation. If you could leave your email address or contact information in the chat, I will definitely reconnect with you offline, and we really gently appreciate that. I'm going to talk to you about that a little bit. Next, we're going to ask our panelists a few questions. We're going to start with Dr. Green. We mentioned food, energy, and water. How can urban farmers ensure their operations are energy efficient and make use of renewable energy sources?
Well, piggybacking or building on what Brother Levi just said, so there's no growing plants without energy. Right now, the natural energy is the sun, right? But as we start talking about what's happening externally over the next 10 years or so, and really, so everybody understands, at least my perspective, I'm planning for 2 or 3 generations ahead. I mean, we want to leave it better now, but we also want to say that there are youngins we know coming after us. And so the way that people in urban ag are manifesting conserving water, using the sun's energy, using the right kind of seed, and dealing with clean soil is by 2 ways I would suggest. One is to build raised beds, right? I just don't really trust the soil. If you can get your soil tested, great. Some of our research was around the quality of soil across North Philly, and it was not pretty, especially in the nicer neighborhoods had the worst soil. And so we were working on a research project on how to clean that up. But I would say raise beds, cover your beds if you can. There's money out there. We'll talk about that in our next webinar series, where the resources are. But I would say minimize and effectively use the sun's resources if you're going to be an outdoor grower. Raise beds, high tunnels, that kind of technology. If you're going to grow indoors, we'll talk about, we have to talk about the cost, right? It's extremely expensive to build and operate an indoor farm. Now, an indoor farm that is what they call controlled agriculture, which uses LED lights, et cetera, et cetera. Now, that's different from indoor farms that are, you have a greenhouse that's not necessarily running on electricity at that level. So if you're going to do any of those things, you want to see if there's a way to have an anaerobic digester, which is, a way to process your waste into energy. That's probably the wisest thing that anyone can do. Take the food waste, take the organic waste, take the leaves, things that can be composted in a digester, and then use the gas that's created out of that process to power up your operation. So I would say, again, looking at outdoor growing, indoor growing, and then the more advanced controlled environment, there are definitely ways to use energy more efficiently and to generate it without running up the power bills that we saw when we were running our shipping container farm. So hopefully that answers that question.
Thank you. Anyone have a question regarding the response from Dr. Green? Okay, we're going to move along. The next question is for Mr. Joins. Mr. Joins, we have a question.
Sorry, I'm John Griffin, but also Griffin. I had to rejoin this chat like on my phone instead of my laptop because my audio couldn't get through.
Okay.
I just had a question, because she talked about raised beds and like outdoor growing.
Yes.
I have a little experience in outdoor growing a little bit, like growing like tomatoes and other types of produce to sell to supermarkets when I was a little bit younger before going to college. But besides that, maybe do you have any suggestions, ideas for like pest control, especially because you're talking about like anaerobic digesters. That's something to where I think that pest control would be something that we would have to worry about a little bit.
Definitely. So, if you're growing outside, you want to use row covers. You can also use certain types of fencing around your crops. You can also use certain oil deterrents, natural organic oil deterrents. You want to cover your crops with certain types of there's different types of screens or particular, like, you have wire, you have metal wire. There's more plastic wire. If you're outdoors, you're going to use certain types of plastic wire coverings and hooping over your beds. If you're using raised beds, and you should be using raised beds because of the soil quality. Unless you had the soil remediated and dug and turned, if you're in raised beds, you want to try to use. You can use hoop pipes, a PVC
Okay.
pipe, create hoops over your bed and cover them so that animals and birds and various things don't have direct access to your crop, while you can still get water and light to your bed and your things are not eaten. You can also do organic sprays around certain areas where you don't want animals stepping in, and that actually works as a great deterrent. And you'll notice that your crops are around a lot longer, which means the animals are starting to move on when they come to your space.
Okay. Thank you.
No problem.
Thank you for your question, Mr. Griffin. Anyone
Thank you.
else? All right, Mr. Joins. The question to you is, what are the biggest challenges in urban agriculture and how do you overcome them?
The biggest challenges in urban agriculture is land acquisition, or the right to actually utilize open space for gardening. And that comes in with the economics of actually purchasing land, maintaining it, and being able to hold it over long periods of time. That's the main issue because of the levels of gentrification and the economic disparity that may start if you are doing urban agriculture. Unless you have front money or some type of income to build off of, acquiring land and keeping land is the issue. There's ways around it. I guess we'll get to that part in a few. But the main thing is the acquisition and the keeping of land. Those are the main areas. And the next part, if you do get the land, is remediating the space, making it healthy so that you can actually use the soil and the ground you're standing on. Those two, but the main first two is the land ownership and access.
Okay. Those seem to be the biggest challenges. Thank you for that. Anyone have any questions on Mr. Jones' response? Okay, the next question will be for Mr. Lattimore. Mr. Lattimore, what are some of the common misconceptions about urban farming and controlled environments that you would like to address?
Since moving back here in 2018, I found the biggest misconception that I find is that urban agriculture is only community gardens. And within community gardens, there's only certain things that can be grown. I believe that the urban environment gives us the opportunities to grow crops that we normally can't grow in this climate. And that would allow for different product development. So I'm all about the product development. And so I'm fascinated about hearing especially with the systems that Dr. Green has designed, is how we're able to utilize an urban environment and grow crops that can contribute to advanced material science. They can get into dense nutraceutical products, as well as building materials from crops that we can grow in the cities. And so that completely opens up, I think, in my mind, it opens up the opportunities for people living in the cities to get involved in agriculture. And we'll just take urban agriculture out of it, because with the right setup, you can grow comparably what you can grow in acreage outside, faster, more efficiently, and with more control. And so you talk about pests, being able to control the pests indoors is entirely more attainable. And so that's one of the things that I find is like, once you realize what can be grown, how to process these things into different components, raw materials, end products, that is the benefit of urban agriculture. I think the world is changing a lot faster than our traditions and customs can keep up. And one of the ways for us to keep our custom of farming with the decreased access to land is to turn our living situations, our dwellings, into farms. And we can turn them into intentional value-added farms. Their whole basement can be turned into something. We've proven it. I'm not lying. Look, I can show you. I got my whole hydroponic system is recirculating. I got my tank down there. I got all. It's possible to do it right in your home, and that is what I believe. The more we learn about that, and then let people start getting their creativity on it, and that's when I'm like, all right, that's what's up. Let me help. I can help get you thinking about these basic systems, and then you go from there and let the creativity of our community take over. And now we have access to an agricultural commodity, which is not something that they have ever said about urban environments, right? So I think that's one of the misconceptions, is like, we're not looking big enough. And if we are, it's usually a different group, and they're growing lettuce or something like that, and microgreens or something. It's like, all right, that's cool. But there's another world that I believe that we should be looking at. So that's what I think.
Thank you. That's a very good point, because the title of this series, this webinar, is talking about the importance of urban agriculture. And when we hear agriculture, especially with the Commonwealth of Pennsylvania being a big agricultural state, what we realize is that when we hear agriculture, just growing up in the city of Philadelphia, I always thought agriculture is only in central Pennsylvania or Lancaster County. But now with urban agriculture and the average age of those farmers that I just mentioned in the Commonwealth being 65 years of age with no succession plan, and the world changing as quickly as you said it does, agriculture is not just seeds, watering the plants and then harvesting them. We're going from, seeds to growing, to processing, to transportation, to distribution, to even manufacturing, and even managing the waste in terms of energy forms. So the whole gamut has changed a great deal, and a lot of that can be achieved and attained with urban agriculture. Does anyone have any questions with Mr. Lattimore's response? Okay. We're going to move on, and I have another question for I guess I'm going to ask this question to Mr. Joins and Mr. Lattimore, because I think we have a lot of interest in that in the chats. For someone interested in starting their own urban farm, what are the first steps they should take and what resources are available to get them started? We just want to make sure people who want to get involved can get involved and show them some of the ways of entering and even
So
some of the barriers to entry.
the first thing you want to do is you want to look at, if you see a lot, you want to look up the ownership of the lot. You want to find out what jurisdictions, what group of people may own it, what laws and jurisdictions are over it, who maintains that space, find out the history of the space. Look at the particular codes in your city around empty lots. A lot of times the lots are no longer owned by an individual, they're now owned by the city. So now once you realize and you see that most of these empty spaces are owned by the city, you then connect yourself to all of the agricultural, horticultural groups of your particular town or city that is connected to city government and land operations. This will help you get faster access and know exactly what is in your favor of getting that space to do the work you need to do in your community on that particular lot. So I'll give you an example because we don't have to speak in vagues. One of the greatest organizations you could join is PHS, Philadelphia Horticultural Society. They work with the city and they interact with empty spaces and lands. They also help to beautify the city through gardening. So when you're dealing with empty lots, PHS can help you interact with PHA. That's in certain aspects of growing and beautification. And once you start beautification, that's the way that we can introduce healing through space. Because a lot of times it's hard when you're dealing with economics, you're dealing with law. Some people want to own the space right away. But if you want to just get the ball rolling, get the ball moving for growing, get connected to all the growing communities and let all the institutions that work with your city directly for beautification and planting. And that gives you some more alliance to actually gain access to land. That's one that I know of that I had to use myself. So
seems like a practical experience. So that's valuable to the whole effort. Mr. Lattimore.
If you're asking me, and I'm gonna start my own my farm. See, I almost called it a lab. I do that. My own farm. I would back up and find out what. There's a few different ways to start a business, I believe. You can look at the void, or you can look at something that everybody wants. And those are two very easy ways to start a business. And I would look at the void and find out what is it that there's a void of and build my farm around that product or around that crop or whatever it is. And for example, we found that there was a void of fresh organic strawberries in January in Philadelphia and the surrounding area. The strawberries that we can get tasted like water. They're horrible. I'm mad that I spent my money on some of these strawberries. So the void for me, if I were to start a farm, I would start an organic strawberry farm year round, producing strawberries. Now that is one way to think about starting a farm, looking at it as a business. You can look at it as, I just want to feed my family, and it can be the same process. And then you think, what does my family eat? We'll probably eat squash, cucumbers, potatoes, things like that. Put it on a list, build out your systems in your own home, in your backyard. There's a lot of different ways. You can do this in a shipping container and like a storage container. Actually, I don't advise you to do that in a storage container. Not do that. But it's very easy to set one of these things up. And I think that's the way that I would go about setting up a farm.
Okay, thank you for that. One of the things I think we should talk about too, with some beginners and with some of the constrained spaces that we have inside an urban environment, maybe putting together a few 2x4s and some of the thick 4 mil plastic and make it a little small greenhouse or hoop house in your basement.
Yes, that's very I'm working on that right now, and I have also a grow tent in the basement already with air purification inside the chambers.
Yeah.
That's how you start, and that's mainly as a farmer. That's good to get seedlings going because you want to have a head start on the season anyway. So having some tents to grow in, building small plastic hoop houses in the basement so that you can keep down insect control, have air control. That's key. So you can always have a head start on the season. So that's in the world of farming, that is a plus always. Traditionally, hydroponics, which that's us, starts in November. If you go to all the old almanacs, hydroponics, getting ready for the next season, they say you start hydroponics in windowsills and get all the new seedlings that you're going to start in the springtime going. And your windowsill and your hydroponic growers, you get them going then. So it's in the tradition. It's there. We just have to implement. So that hoop house in the basement, that's the move. And we're working on it at SLA.
Excellent. Thank you for that. Mr. Griffin, you had a question?
No, it was just mentioning both upon what was about what was said both before about land. I'm going to school and I'm almost graduated for a degree in ecology. And I know there's certain laws to some of what I wanted to do was eventually own enough land for preservation of a lot of different animals I wanted to be keeping. But I know that there's certain laws to speak on about before is about just joining organizations that will help you grow, but just informing everyone of us, like knowing laws that there are laws that if there's an endangered animal or there's ways to make the land that you have, the land that you buy, something as a tax write-off.
Right.
Only because I think that there's people in this world really love money. And you can kind of use that as a way to say, hey, look, this can be a tax write-off down the road. Just like the the other John had mentioned starting a business. If you do YouTube, you start really slow, and maybe it might not pan out right away, but there's definitely laws you can take advantage of. There's definitely economic ways and even government and organizations that'll help you just obtain this property over time. Eventually, it will cost nothing to help you grow this. And there's definitely organizations in the city that help you grow stuff and actually make deals with supermarkets to sell it. But that can individuals and families can learn to do the same thing that and kind of make a business out of it that won't cost nothing, but that will be healthier for them and also just eventually beautify the city. And that can be including just not plants and but also just insects, animals, which are very important for livestock, especially for
Absolutely.
plants.
Absolutely. And your point is well taken. I want to be very clear that we do not give legal advice. At Think and Grow Farms, what we're doing and the intent of this series is to introduce people to the importance of urban agriculture and tell them the 5 lifelines through how someone can be a little more self-sustainable, not be caught off guard in the event of bad weather or supply chain disruptions, and to see if there's any synergy into some of the 4 or 5 areas that we mentioned with regard to the agriculture value chain, where there's some potential business or employment opportunities moving forward. There may be some resources around that are printed that'll give you access to some of those things. And if I can get my hands on something that's pre-printed, maybe by the City of Philadelphia's website or some local support groups, I'll be happy to share that information with you.
Thank you. Thank you.
You're welcome, sir. All right, any other questions?
I'd actually like to follow up on what Mr. Griffin was just saying. As an ecologist, just for awareness, in the city of Philadelphia, if you have a conservation district. So one of the top things that USDA has put in place, and they put it in place after the Dust Bowls of the 1940s, right? Dust was so bad in the Midwest where they had the farming going on that you could see the dust all the way to the East Coast. So they created something called conservation districts. And in Pennsylvania, there's 67 counties, 66 of them have conservation districts. Only Philadelphia doesn't have one that helps with protecting the land, protecting the water, et cetera. So for 50 years, there's never been a conservation district to provide the protections that you're talking about. But that stuff is coming. And so I wanted to circle back to say, Philadelphia has an urban agriculture strategic plan. We were all part of that, developing that plan. And I want to stay on that word plan, because if you decide that you want to grow food for you and your neighborhood, right, you and your family, it might be 2 or 3 families involved, that's considered a hobby farm. If you decide you want to make a living out of this, you have to decide how to do the market research and write a business plan to generate enough income. Who are you going to sell with? And that's where you, to Brother Levi's point, that's how you plug into the existing growers, right? The market research, to O'Neill's point. I just want to sort of put these things together. If you're going to grow as a hobby, you can grow whatever you like. If you're going to grow as a farmer, you have to grow what the market's going to pay you for, or you've wasted a lot of energy. So you just have to be real with yourself about what's your real vision here. The conservation district piece is coming into Philadelphia. They have no choice because Philadelphia is the largest city in the Commonwealth, and the only place that doesn't have a conservation district is the climate change. Is just we can talk about that another time. But I wanted to address that last thing too, is the land access. What we had to do, what Mark and I did, we could not get a piece of land inside of Philadelphia. We were trying to put our containers down. And what we were told then, and what we still are being told now, is unless you can show you can cover the taxes and keep that land maintained, they're not going to give you one of those city vacant lots, right? And so you've got to be able to show. And a lot of folks wanted to grow for 3 or 4 months and then walk away from the lots. That's what we were told. So we had to collaborate with somebody who had some land. I want to go back to the power of working with One Art. What Malika and One did was allowed us to come set our container where nobody else would. We dropped in a temporary power line, and we showed Mark and I, nobody, because it was COVID, we had to learn how to operate that system ourselves, right? Remember, Mark, we were out there.
I cannot forget that.
Cannot forget it. So I would just say access to land. There are schools, like I want Brother Levi to talk a little bit about what SLA, what's going on. So you can collaborate with schools that have land. You can collaborate with churches. Bethel AME, we found out, has a huge, farm for their congregation. You can find people to get your skills up, right? Without going into securing the land, get your skills up. So just again, market research, get the business plan, collaborate with somebody. That's what I would do now if we had to start all over again. Really emphasize the market research, because if you can't generate revenue, I'll talk another time about how we've been generating revenue. So we can share it out among and keep the energy going in our small way. But I just wanted to weigh in on that, Mark.
No. Thank you for that. We will have this is a webinar series. Just to remind everyone, this is the first of a series. We're going to have another one 2 weeks from today. I believe that's the 6th. We're going to have one on the 20th and one on the 27th of July. So, and we're going to continue the momentum into the month of August. So we'll keep you guys informed. You've registered already. You'll have notifications when we have other ones, and we're going to cover a lot of topics over the course of the webinar series. But I think the main thing is that we do want to decide, when you get involved in urban agriculture, one of the huge benefits is that if you're going to grow indoors in urban agriculture, you have the benefit of growing up to 12 years, because as we know around here, it gets cold after Thanksgiving and it lasts until March sometimes. And we've seen snow as late as April. Hopefully we won't see that again, but when it's cold, a lot of times the plants don't like that, and we can actually control how much growing we can get out of it. Because if we only get 3 months out of the year, out of the summer months, then we're relying on bringing food from outside, and then we're paying produce prices that are going through the roof, and nobody wants to do that. So Dr. Green, I also have a question for you before we wrap up. Just to let everyone know, if you can please check the chat. We have all of our social media handles in the chat. I'd like for you to see that stuff and get a copy of that so you know where we are on social media and follow us. But the final question is, how do you see the future of urban farming evolving, especially with the advances in technology and increasing urbanization?
Thank you for that question. I want to build on what Brother O'Neill said and what Levi said and what we're all here for, and the reason we're so happy to be working with PHA. I really do want to shout out Makita Holly, who was the chief advocate for us to come into PHA to demonstrate to residents that this could happen. Her team, Ethel Joy over there, David Warren. We've been very blessed the last 3 years to be engaged with them to talk about urban agriculture as an economic driver, right? We have our immediate food access needs, right? Hunger has gone up in Philadelphia, even post-COVID. So we need to let you all know that we consider ourselves the bridge between the traditional, which is extremely important, which is our legacy, that's on our DNA. Many of us have family members who were brought here because they were experts at farming. Some people were indigenous here who were experts at farming, and people who have joined in who are experts at farming. So there's something honorable about working in the soil and producing. We need to continue that. That's our DNA. But Think and Grow, we're the bridge between the traditional and the contemporary. And I think that what has happened is you got rural agriculture that gets all of the fire, all of the energy, and we don't grow at the level that rural agriculture does. But we do offer an opportunity for in urban centers to go from the traditional to the contemporary, where yes, we're making products. Yes, we're designing new ways of building using what we call biomaterials, right? A crop is a biomaterial. Hemp is a biomaterial, corn is a biomaterial, hay is a biomaterial. So what are people using those crops for that we can use in cities to reclaim our inheritance, that we know how to work with, the land, with biology, with ecology? That's who we are. And so I think that the future is very bright, very bright. Those of us who are teachers, those of us who are practitioners, we all are joining together to say, we want to create what they call going concerns, I guess. We want to create sustainable practices that sustain us going into a future that is a sustainable environment. And so sustainability flows through all of that. So I think that the future is very bright. My years of working in education, we're always focused on, can you teach young people how to design and engineer indoors and how to program? At some point, things as simple as sensors, right? For monitoring the quality of soil, for monitoring the quality of water. So there's take that lineage to the next level and create job opportunities and business opportunities. I think the future is very bright.
Thank you for that. I really want to thank everyone for their time today. I think it was a pretty good, robust discussion. I hope you have a better understanding of urban agriculture and what it means. And hopefully you can join us throughout the entire webinar series. So please keep your eyes posted for the next one. It's in about 2 weeks. We have all of our social media handles and links inside the chat. Take a moment to take a look at that. And I want to say hello to Dr. Strongfields. And Dr. Bay and I will be getting together soon. And I'm looking forward to all the positive momentum. I appreciate the support from all of you. And Mr. Griffin, we wish you well in your studies. I'm not sure where you're going to school at, but it's a really good day when they can call you an alumnus.
Thank you. I'm actually going to school at Custom University. I'm in my last year. I'm working on I got my major. I'm just working on some certifications, but I'm just about done.
At Kutztown?
Thank you. Thank you.
You said it was at Kutztown?
Oh yeah, Kutztown University. Yeah.
Yes, I know them well. Okay.
Yeah.
All right.
So
Well,
I
thank you.
before so.
All right. Well, best of luck to you.
Thank
And
you.
does anyone else?
I hope I continue to learn from this group and more meetings and stuff like that, because there's a lot to learn from here.
Okay.
Spread the word. Spread the word, everyone. We'll as soon as you get it, pass it to someone else, because we want to start tagging into the movement that's happening right now around, you know, food sovereignty, land sovereignty. So again, joining Mark and just saying thank you for joining us, and close it out, Mr. Green.
Well, thank you again, everyone. Appreciate your time. Ms. Vasquez, I'm glad you were able to fit us in. Thank you all for coming out. We'll be looking forward to getting in touch with you for the next one. And this recording of this video webinar will be up and available for you guys to go back to look at if you miss any questions. Okay. Thank you, everyone, for coming out. Enjoy the rest of your day. Stay cool and be well. Take care.
Thanks, everyone.
Thank
See ya.
you. Great weekend.